Have we believed the lies of culture that say that they are just babysitters, or that they're unable to help out with the house or the kids or the meals or whatever else? And I think that as godly moms, sometimes we allow ourselves to put on this like coat of resentment and this coat of despair by being the default parent, by feeling like we're the ones that are spiritually capable of doing all the things, and never actually taking time to build the culture within our own homes and creating and training our husbands to be able to do the very same things that we can do. So personally for me, one thing I told myself is that I am replaceable. And obviously, take the meat, spit out the bones. Like, obviously no one can replace a mom, right? But I want my kids and my husband to know that everything I can do, that they are fully capable of doing it as well. And so from the beginning, when I started having kids, anything that I learned, whether it was sleep training or emotional regulation or parenting hacks or all the things, I made sure to always teach my husband and to train my husband and to give him opportunity to also succeed and to be able to grow, so that I don't ever put myself in a position where I'm handling everything and my husband is unable to handle the disciplines or the house or the meals or just the culture of our home. And so for me, I wrote this book called Raising Little Disciples, and I have a companion workbook to it just for Kingdom Moms. It's been amazing. But one of the things that I write on there is that you are the gatekeeper of the culture of your home. Like, as moms, your voice matters and the things that you speak matter. And I think sometimes because it feels so natural and so normal for people to think a certain way, that we just kind of like buy into it instead of challenging it. And so for me personally, whenever I used to work in corporate, and I would hear my coworkers talk about their husbands being like another kid that they have to handle and all the things that they have to do, just very disrespectful conversations. I remember just asking the Lord, like, this was never God's heart. Like, when he created Adam and Eve, they were created as a unit. They were created as a two-person household family. And if you don't know the detriment of a fatherless home, it is absolutely damaging to the children. But yet, sometimes we live like we're in a fatherless home, even though our husbands are present in the house. We treat them as though they're fatherless or incapable. And so I want to really bring that to light, because I think that's something that a lot of moms struggle with, and a lot of resentment creeps in, and burnout and overstimulation, because we feel like our husbands are never helpful or they're not doing anything to support us, when we've never given them the opportunity or the chance to do so. And so I just want to, I guess, all this to say, is invite them into what you know, invite them into what you're learning. Like, let them be a part of your process in growing, just like you're growing as a parent. None of us know it all, none of us have arrived, but as we're in process, invite your husband into that as well, so that you're not the only voice and the only missionary and the only gatekeeper in your home, but you're both a powerhouse together. And so there's a couple things that I just want to bring to surface, because in my Kingdom Mom workbook, one of the questions that I ask, and I'm looking down because I want to show you, like, here's oh my goodness, my computer's freezing. But there's something that I ask in my Kingdom workbook, and it says, what lens do I see motherhood through? And it's asking the difference between lies and God's eyes. And the next one is motherhood against the current of culture. And then the next one is lies I believed about motherhood, and now replacing them with the truth of what God is exposing. And so all that to say, there are certain things that I believe culture has given us. And one of them is the dad being a babysitter. So we feel like we have to ask, hey, can you babysit the kids while I go out for an hour or two? Instead of treating them as a father, or seeing them as capable, or just trusting that they can figure it out without us having to be controlling or overpowering in any of it. The second thing is, if your husband, if you feel like he's incapable, have you respectfully trained him? And I know that might sound kind of dumb. And it's not so much that fathers don't know how to parent. I think it's more so, have you included them into the things that maybe you're passionate about? And I guess, you know, a better example, like if our husband, like for example, my husband loves football. I honestly could care less. But my husband is constantly talking about football and the stats and all the things. And when we're watching a game, he'll show me like, okay, this is what's going on, or this is the defense, or this is, you know, the touchdown or whatever. And he's explaining it. And that's his way of training me and allowing me to be a part of it, a part of his process and his passion and his hobby. And so as mothers, like we can train our husbands in that similar way where we're not looking down upon them, but we're training them and teaching them in the things that come more naturally to us. Maybe our empathy or our nurturing or the things that our kids enjoy doing, or maybe certain like just frameworks of their heart that God has gifted us in, and we can help invite our husbands into that. The third thing I would say is that we have to stop gatekeeping motherhood. Like, yes, our voice and our discipleship, all those things matter and our standards matter, but our husbands also need to be a part of that. And there are so many ways. I remember, like in our own house, for example, I am naturally more soft and tender towards my children. When my husband steps in, he can easily be more military mode, or maybe more stern or more strict. And sometimes it's easy to overpower our husbands by saying, hey, like that's too harsh, or that's too much, or that's too hard. While what we're doing is we're removing like their authority and their power in the household by telling them what to do because we would do something different. And really that's just like a form of pride if you think about it. And so the Lord has just showed me, like, when my husband is parenting, to give him permission to parent and to give the Holy Spirit permission to speak into my husband's heart and bring conviction if there's something that's off. Just like if I was to, like, you know, yell at my kids, for example, and my husband would be like, hey, don't yell at the kids. Hey, don't do that. Why are you doing that? That would remove the voice of conviction in my own life, where I would step away and say, you know what, Lord, I shouldn't have responded that way. And now I get to make it right and repair with my children without having my husband, like, I guess, controlling that or trying to like force that in me. But yet we do that a lot to our husbands. And so do I agree with everything that my husband does? No. But I don't know that necessarily, like, I'm not the standard in my home. Ultimately, Jesus is. And so Jesus has to have permission to work in both me and my husband and bring us both into light and into truth. And so something lately, my kids have been ignoring me, my older one in particular. And it's like a really sensitive spot because it touches that place of like feeling like, yeah, just disrespected and feeling kind of worthless. And I have to remember, like, it's not personal. Like, my kid is 5. It's really okay. It's just a matter of training him. But something that my husband has started doing is he'll step in and he'll tell my son, you don't disrespect my wife like this. And he will make him do like front leaning rests and push-ups and squats and all these sorts of things. And so he'll say, when you ignore my wife, you get military dad. And I think it's so funny because I think we need both. I think we need the nurturing mom and the sweet, forgiving, you know, tender parent. But I also think we need a stern and a voice that's powerful and authoritative. And they both merge together into creating like a picture of Jesus and a healthy home when they're both, I guess, properly done, right? Like, we don't want to be overly permissive or overly harsh. That's not what I'm saying. But there is a beautiful merge of, like, Jesus is both a lion and a lamb. And so there is a fierceness, but there's also a tenderness, and we need to have both. The second thing I want to touch on, the lies that we believe, is we can't build a fatherless culture inside of a 2-parent home. And I touched on this in my other video, is that fatherlessness creates so much damage in our children. And yet so many of us live fatherless, even if our husbands are present. And I think that that's such a disservice. And even in our own house, like when my husband, you know, fails and doesn't do something right, and my kids come to me and try to talk about it, I will always honor and stand up for my husband, even if I disagree. But for the sake of unity and for the sake of protecting the authority and the structure of our home, I will say, hey buddy, I know you are angry with daddy, and that's a conversation that you and daddy need to have. And I think that it's best if you talk to him. And I will refer my children to my husband if there is some sort of like repair that needs to be had. But I make sure to never say, oh yeah, daddy's so mean, or yeah, he's so harsh, or whatever. because that opinion will be formed by my children when it's appropriate, and I should never ever be formed by the mom or the voice of another adult. Anyways, and so at the end of the day, what I really want to touch on today for this Mama Monday live, I haven't done in a while, but what I really want to touch on is like our husbands are not assistants, they're not babysitters, they're not just like another kid in the house. Like, the role of a father is really important and it's really valuable. And I know this is like a motherhood channel, but all this to say is, as moms, we get to call our husbands higher. We get to call them into the role of fatherhood by using our voice and using our influence, using our, I guess, standard of honor to bring them into a place that's rightfully theirs to have as dad. And so anyways, I want to really, at the end of the day, just restore like this vision of fatherhood, because I believe a godly mom needs to have a godly dad, and vice versa. And obviously some of us, you know, like we've all been through seasons where our husbands maybe are not saved or they're not walking with the Lord. And I've had that in my own season, where I've had to do some of it on my own. And the Lord will sustain us if that's the season that we're in. And he will help us, you know, he will be like the missing pieces, because God can do that. But at the end of the day, like, God's heart is for family and God's heart is for the home, and to build a culture of holiness and honor and respect and family, there needs to be a space for both mom and dad to operate in godliness and in truth the way that Jesus requires it. And so if you just joined in, something I mentioned in the beginning of the video was training your husband. Like, give him everything you know. Don't gatekeep any of it. Like, if you are training your children to sleep through the night, tell your husband how to do it. Give him the chance to practice it. If you are really particular in how you like your coffee or how you like your meals, teach your husband how you enjoy it, or what you like, or what your kids like and don't like, and vice versa. And everything you know, give it to your children. Like, I don't do chores by myself in the house. My kids know everything that I know, obviously with in measure. But I never feel like I have to be the one that's everything falls on me. I used to feel like that, like the default mom, the default parent, and it just caused so much resentment. And it wasn't like a good experience, you know. And so now, like, when it's like, hey guys, it's time to clean, the whole household knows how to clean. They know the standard of cleanliness, and the things that they can't do, obviously that's where I step in as the parent and do. And so regardless if it's my husband or if it's my kids, at the end of the day, like, I want them to know and feel confident in every role that they are asked to play in the future, whether it's a parent or a roommate or whatever. And so anyways, all this to say, that's kind of what's been on my mind today for this Mama Monday live. I'm kind of in the process of, like, here's my camera, refilming some stuff and launching my ebook and my workbook, and I'll post the link below. But yeah, I've kind of been in this place of like, what lies am I believing and how can we target that and overcome that? And I'd love to hear from you if this is something that you're struggling with in your own home, or maybe ways that you've allowed your husband to be a part or to be a father, to thrive as a father. What are you doing so that other mamas can be encouraged as well? But until next time, thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you later. Bye.